Lights up!
Ready to go? Yeah?
Yes, let's jump in.
Right, let's do it. Well, welcome everybody to the latest episode of Lights Up, Putney Theatre Company's podcast. I am joined this afternoon by the three cast members of our studio production, The Bleeding Tree, Rachel, Michelle and Indiana. Welcome to Putney, because this is your debut at Putney as well, isn't it?
It is. Thank you for having us.
Well, delighted that you've joined us. Now, I'm going to start with you, Michelle, because you play Mother.
Mum, yes, I do.
In The Bleeding Tree. Now, to the careful listener, they will detect that we have three authentic Australian accents in the room. I won't do mine. Which is just as well, because it's an Australian play.
It is an Australian play, yes.
So, Michelle, tell me, you're the mum, and just set up the sort of the premise of the play itself. How does it start?
It starts with a bang.
A bang.
Literally.
Go, tell me more.
So we start the play like a lot of plays aren't started. They're normally finished this way. But we start by the fact that we have just killed Dad.
So that's not a spoiler alert,
Not a
dear
spoiler.
listener.
No.
We know immediately.
Immediately. The moment we start the play, that's what happens.
Well, that's a really powerful start,
It's an
isn't it?
incredible
You
start.
grabbed your audience straight away.
Yeah. And so from that moment on, it's like, what we're really working hard towards is for the audience to really feel like we're on that journey. They're on that journey with us. And why did they do it? What happened? How did it get to that point?
Exactly. What happened before,
Yep.
and then, but also what happens
What
now.
happened now?
So Indiana and Rachel, you play daughters. But are you just known as daughter one and daughter two in the play, or do you actually have names?
We do.
Oh, you do have names. Excellent.
We do have names.
So who's who? Indiana, you're
I'm Ida.
Ida, and
I
Rachel.
play Ada.
Ada and Ida. So daughters off. So what's your first reaction to the crack of the gun?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely shocked, and we have a very normal human reaction to killing someone, obviously that being the father. But yeah, I think we try and physicalise that, and then we obviously, with the beautiful language that Angus Cerini gives us, we really try to just articulate that shock and that distraught, and it's balancing all those emotions and getting the rhythm right in the lines as well. So it's a whole lot of stuff that we're trying to balance out.
Because it's written in a very particular way, isn't it? So Angus Cerini, who's the author, this was first performed in Sydney in 2014, is that correct? And then the UK premiere was last year at Southwark Playhouse.
Yes.
That's right.
This is the second time in London, I'm going to say,
Yes.
that this has been performed, which is very exciting. But he's written it there's no stage directions,
No.
right? And so the language and the rhythm, am I right in saying it's very much more like a ballad?
It's very poetic, and at some points you do feel like your senses are being assaulted because some of the language is quite graphic and abrupt, but then it kind of goes off into more of almost like romantic, and you're kind of, well, I don't want to give too much away, but we're sort of bouncing in between different characters at certain points.
Oh, so a
as
bit
well.
of multi-role.
So, yes, and that's
Not
the
in the
time.
traditional sense.
No, tell me more,
Yes.
Michelle. So multi-role in...
So multi-rolling normally you would be, so I'm playing, Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones, and that's the two particular characters. But what we do here is we still play us. So we still play Mum, we still play Ida, we still play Ada, but we also take on an alternative sort of like character, which is really interesting. So we are still ourselves, but we are imbuing sort of these beautiful characters that
Instead
come
of
in.
becoming.
Instead of becoming a completely
Yes.
different character. We are still who we are the whole way through this show.
So you give voice to
We
Mr.
do.
Jones and Mrs. Smith,
Yes,
but
Mrs.
it's still
Smith,
very
indeed.
much as... So instead of actually becoming the other character, what you're doing is Mum, Ada and Ida is imbuing the voice
Yes.
of the other character. So the audience is never left in any doubt that you're still the characters that you are.
Yes.
But you're reenacting, or no, it's not reenacting, is it? It's more, it's in the actual time.
It's in the moment, in that moment, right then and there, so it gives the audience something slightly different to be watching, to be experiencing, to be seeing, and also seeing our response to that.
Of
as
course.
Marmada and Ada. It's really interesting. It's an incredible way of doing it.
So
it doesn't get done very often this way. And
Yeah.
It's very
structure.
unusual, isn't it? So how have you found this as actors, to be doing a play that's so different? What's been the process for you, Rachel?
It's been a beautiful challenge, quite overwhelming. Paul and my fellow castmates have just been so amazing. And for me, it's just being very confident and feeling really intimate with all those backstories that you've created for, you know, your own character, and then those other ones, Mr. Jones, Mrs. Smith.
Because
And
then the audience really believe them as well. And
Absolutely,
that's the thing,
yeah.
that if you are so knowledgeable about your own character, then with a play like this, where it is all about relationships and emotions, then that is clearly infectious, and the audience then believe it as well.
Yeah.
So it's set in a rural Australian town.
country town.
Do we know when? Year?
No,
No.
and that's what we're keeping completely just sort of, there is no age to this story. There is no time frame. And I think that's what's really lovely about what we've done with, you know, like working with Simon, working with Nick, working with obviously Paul, to make sure that there is no specific set time and date, because the topics that we talk about in this play and the things that happen within this play are universal, and they've happened from way back when to still happening now.
And we should just say what the main actual theme of the play is, which is domestic violence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. That is relevant today as it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a wise decision, actually, to make it timeless, so that it becomes far more acute.
Very much, because a lot of this play is also about complicity. You know, it's about what people know and what they don't do, you know, and allowing it to continue to carry on. And I think that's what's really important, that if you do put a time and a place to that, then that changes people's perception. Oh, of course, well, that happened, yes, in the 1960s.
So right. Oh, and almost sort of excuse that behaviour.
Yes.
Go, oh, well, the time was very different then in the 70s.
Yeah.
Now, Indiana, do you think that the rest of the small town are aware of what's been going on?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think it shines a mirror up to society, and that's definitely the angle we've taken with this play. Of course, it's, you know, you could call it a feminist play, absolutely, but we are really holding that mirror up to society, and we are also shining a light on inadequacies of the criminal justice system.
So talking about domestic violence, I know that this is set in Australia. I don't know what the figures are or the statistics for domestic violence in Australia, but I'm sure there's pretty similar universally.
At least 1 in 3.
1 in 3. Isn't that shocking?
And is it 2 women are dying per week at the moment in Australia due
Yes.
to domestic violence?
Yes.
That's the current statistics.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because it was written in a time of the Me Too movement. Yes, and then of course we experienced lockdown with COVID, and that exacerbated domestic violence.
And that probably would have been global as well, wouldn't it? Not
Global.
just
globally.
here.
Yeah, I don't know the exact figures, but certainly domestic violence and male-related violence to women and girls jumped astronomically during COVID across the globe. And we're not, what we desperately aren't doing is we're not hitting people over the head with a wet fish. You know what I mean? When that's not what this play is about. This play is just about holding up a mirror to sort of say, you know, what can we do? What should we do? What aren't we doing? And how are we not helping those women and girls in situations where they can't particularly help themselves? You know, and that might come down to financial situations, you know, emotional situations. I mean, the fact that this play is set in a country rural town out in the middle of nowhere, it's really hard to kind of imagine that somebody would be able to get away from that situation, you know, a mother and her 2 girls easily.
And that's a really good point, actually, because of course we're all here in London, in leafy southwest London and Putney, whereas you're absolutely right. If you're out in the rural Australia, and I'm assuming that sort of isolation comes through, Rachel, does it, in the play, of the 3 of them being very isolated?
Certainly. I mean, there are no organisations and community groups that they would be able to call on, that the mum and the girls would be able to call on and have assistance with and be provided support through, that you would here in London.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
down the road there are a huge amount of organisations and community groups that can assist you if you require it or if you need it. But if you think about being out in the middle of nowhere where your closest neighbour could be, 7 miles away.
Exactly. And I guess that isolation, therefore, just really highlights the desperate measures that they take.
Yeah.
Because if you think that's your only solution, which is pretty drastic.
Pretty extreme.
It's pretty extreme. But then I guess then the joy of that is the audience then have to then imagine how it's got to that stage.
Yeah.
So what's happened before. And this play, I'm assuming as well, it's very much about your relationships, the three of you.
Yes. Post the shot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So do you see your characters change? Because how old are you in the play as the daughters? Do we know?
We're early 20s,
Right.
late teens, but not much younger than that. And you're exactly right. All three of us as characters go on a different journey, but together. And the way we deal with the action of killing the father, we all have our own sort of moral compass, and we all deal with it very differently. Particularly with my character, Ida, I definitely have more of a moral compass in the play, and perhaps I am just that little bit different to Ada and Mum. But that's because I'm the youngest and perhaps not as desensitized to the abuse and the domestic violence in general that we, have been enduring and experiencing over the past number of years. So, yeah, you definitely see that come out to play.
And so you as Ada, Rachel,
Yeah.
you're slightly older.
I'm the eldest.
So you're the elder. So
So
you have witnessed, and I'm assuming have also been the recipient of.
many years of abuse. Yes.
So what's
Yes.
your initial reaction to your mum shooting your father?
I am all for it because I want to escape.
Yeah.
This is about survival. But yeah, throughout Ada's journey, there is a few cracks that start to come through. And I don't want to give too much away, but there is certainly a big realization and unraveling that she has of, okay, has my loyalty to my mum, who I worship and adore and, love so much, has it kind of been like a blind loyalty? I'm now in this situation where it's irreversible. Yes, okay, maybe dad's not alive anymore to hurt us, but you live with that in your
It's the
conscience
repercussions.
forever, and it haunts you forever. And in a way, you're still kind of trapped,
There's a lovely moment in the play where there's a realisation between the three of them that they've all been thinking about this.
Brilliant.
About doing this or doing something like this,
yes.
or about him not being around anymore, and those levels of thoughts of death,
Sort of fantasizing about the act, but not
actually
doing it. And then there's doing it.
Then there's this realization in the play that all three of us have actually been thinking about this at one point in time, or every day, or whatever it might be. And that's it's quite sad from a perspective, because it's like, if only we had have had these conversations, if only me as mum had have talked to my girls and not tried to just put my head in the sand or just try to shield them or whatever it might be. If we had have just had a conversation about how we're all feeling and what this was doing to us and what dad was doing to the girls and to mum.
But that's the point, though, isn't it?
It is the point.
That these conversations don't
generally happen.
Yeah. Which is why these situations
Get into the
escalate.
situation they are.
Yeah. And I guess you as mum, despite him being clearly an abhorrent human being, there cannot be anything else but also guilt, and how to reconcile that with the years of abuse and also trying to protect your daughters.
Absolutely.
So it's a very complex journey for you. No.
It also begs the question as well, because I think the audience initially will be going, what a shame they didn't have this conversation initially with one another to talk about how they were being abused and etc. But we're really asking the audience to go beyond that and think about, well, if they had have had a system in place that supported them, would they have even needed to ask the question to one another? And you know, again, this is the whole thing about what we've already spoken about, the mirror up to society. Because if you have a support system already there and you have a criminal justice system, that's fair. That's just
That works.
That works.
We should say it's not all doom and gloom, is it, ladies?
No.
You know, it is a very funny script, and
Laced
just
with dark
Australia
humour.
humour.
Yeah.
and then that sort
Definitely.
of comes out in your relationships together as
Yes.
well. So you can have one moment of being when it's quite dark, and then that's flipped on its head by just a remark, an
Yeah.
aside.
Yes.
And it's needed. Like,
It's dynamic.
change in dynamic just
Yeah.
to kind of...
And as well, like I mean, hopefully people have watched recent TV shows like Adolescence, because I think shows like that have really brought to our attention once again, you know, this thing of like toxic masculinity and violence against women. And you know, there's almost a new wave of this that's come about with young men, and to kind of be a part of a play that addresses this head on in a very unique way, unconventional way, with the different, the dramaturgy and all the rest of it, is really rewarding. And hopefully people go away and think about it even more in a new way.
Well, I can't wait to see it, girls. I really can't. It's on from the 20th to the 24th of May in the studio. Please book your tickets early, because tickets in the studio are limited due to the space. Act now, because they do sell out, and you really don't want to miss out on this. It's an absolutely crackingly beautiful, very funny, dark, brilliant Australian play. And as I said, I think it's the second time it's been performed in London. So go to www.putneyartstheatre.org.uk to get the tickets. You can also get them via Facebook and also Instagram accounts in the bios, and their links will be there as well. So again, 20th to the 24th of May in the studio, and we'll see you there. Thanks, guys. That was really joyful. I can't wait to see you.
This is a real Putney Theatre Company production. Do share the podcast with your friends and take a look at our website, searching online for the Putney Theatre Company. So that's it for now. See you next time.